With infinite complaisance, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome Kevin on with me, and he is the creator, host, and producer of the podcast Where the Weird Ones Are. Kevin, welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Time is our greatest currency right now, has always been. So the fact that you're taking the time to have me on, I really appreciate it.
No, man, ditto to you. And thanks for reaching out and saying, hey, I have some things I could chat about. And all of them sound extremely interesting. And they run the gamut, which I love. I mean, that happens a lot with, I think, you folks that are not like me, who is sensitive as a rock. I have blocked, obviously, something at some point in my life. So I don't have experiences like a lot of you guys do. And I love when people come on, they're like, honestly, I have quite a bit going on. It's not just Bigfoot. It's not just UFOs. It's not just ghosts. It's a little bit of everything. I'm like, okay, let's talk. No, so obviously, it sounds like you've been kind of tapped into or had paranormal experiences over a lot of your life. And the show, I would assume, is a byproduct of that, right? I mean, let's talk about the show a little bit before we dive into your experiences.
Yeah. I mean, pretty basically, first of all, I used to think podcasts were really dumb. I was like, who the hell wants to sit there and listen to people just talk about themselves, I guess, essentially. But I think it was like 2021, 2020, late 2020, I guess, when I really started listening to podcasts. And I found some ghost ones where people were telling their own stories. And, I was like, I've had a lot of experiences my whole entire life. I think I wanted to talk to people, so that's what I did. Like, yeah, I started it because I wanted to hear other people's stories, and it wasn't like to get notoriety of any kind or anything. It was essentially just for the conversations. And so far, I've talked to a lot of people that have not only similar stories to mine, but the vast differences in stories of people all over the place. Like, I've talked to people in Europe, the other side of the country on the West Coast, people in my area, and and Canada and Mexico, and like there's a lot of people that have similar similar encounters that are completely different areas. So it's the subject has always interested me, and conspiracies are a lot of fun to talk about, even though there's a lot of them that I don't really believe in, but they're still fun to talk about. So that's how the podcast was born, and the name kind of took me a while, I guess, to land on it, but I think I found a good one.
You did. It's very catching. It snags you in. You know exactly probably what's going to be covered. So I like that. And I checked out the website and even just the artwork you've got going on. And then you've got some products on there that seem really interesting. Talk a little bit about the other side of that.
Yeah, so it was really cool. So everybody's like, you have to have some kind of merch or whatever. So I started off with just my logo on a plain white t-shirt. How it started, and I started going to events, and I started giving friends my t-shirts and stuff like that. And I so I started creating more different kind of t-shirts. I got in touch with a woman who was a graphic designer. She was on the show. She was also a medium. And she's like, I was talking to her about this guy that I had hired to do a new logo. And the logo that he did, like, I don't mean to like crap on him or anything. I guess I just won't say his name, but it was childish. It was very like, what's the word that I'm looking for? Basic. And I was just like, I expected better from somebody who is quote unquote artist. And so I got to talking to her. She's like, I'm a graphic designer as well, and I could do some stuff for you. And we started talking about doing comics and stuff like that. So she started making a ton of different designs for my merch, and that's how that she made a banner for my YouTube and everything. And then I make my own hot sauce for myself, and one of my friends was like, "You should sell this stuff." And I was like, "You know what? I, I'm doing this podcast. That'd be a perfect time to like be like, hey guys, try my hot sauce. If you like hot sauce, you like spicy, you know." And she made my logo, she made my labels and stuff, and then I started trying different flavors out, and it just like snowballed from there. And people who have tried it seem to really like it. So I mean, there's a restaurant in Oregon that wants to pick up my apple hot sauce, so that was pretty cool. And then I also started a coffee company out of it too, which is, I mean, it's one two of my favorite things, my vices, is hot sauce and coffee. So it's like the perfect combination for myself. So I talk about ghosts and cryptids and stuff like that. And on top of it, I get my own coffee and my own hot sauce. So, and those can be found on the website as well. And then I'm really active in the gym, so I'm in currently in talks with a supplement company. So I have the logo made and everything. I just want to try their stuff because I don't want to put out anything that I don't like personally. So it's been a lot of fun. It's a journey for sure.
Did you want to give out the website? People can go check all that stuff out.
Oh yeah, duh. I'm terrible at promoting myself sometimes. But it's where the weird ones are podcast.com, and there's a whole bunch of different pages on there for all the merch and the hot sauce and the coffee. I do a podcast of the month every month, so that's on there right now. It's a true crime podcast, and I think the story that they cover is really important to get out there because it hasn't gotten justice yet. So.
Yeah, a lot of sad stories out there. I'm just as addicted to true crime myself as I am to anything else, so I understand that.
Mm.
Well, Kevin, did you want to start at some of your first experiences and we'll work through?
Yeah, absolutely. So the very first one that I can remember, it was kind of experience with my sister, but also not at the same time. So it was one night, I was about 5. We were getting ready for bed, and my sister went into her room and she came out crying, saying there was a witch in her window. I remember laughing at her, being like, "What the heck is she talking about? She's crazy." And my dad had just gotten home from work. Had worked late that night, and so he like went from coming in the door to going into her room to try and calm her down. And me and my older brother had our room at the end of the trailer, and we lived on the side of the mountain, so in Vermont, and it was really, really dark out. And I'm walking through my bedroom doorway, and the window is directly in front of the doorway, and I see these two figures fly by my window, like they were in the air because the it wasn't a foundation, but you know how some trailers can be propped up. Well, so the trailer was propped up, and we had like a deck and a set of stairs that came up. It sat pretty high on the side of this mountain. So in order for something to go by my window, it would have to be either extremely big or it was flying. So, but what the way it looked like to me, I couldn't quite get the figures down, but they look because my sister said she saw a witch in her window, I associated these two figures with witches flying around our house on brooms. So like just like holding onto their brooms, just like, and I was just I stood there for a second and I was like, "What the heck?" They were darker than the darkness, and we hear this all the time with shadow figures and all that. And I went to the living room, I sat on the couch, and I was like, "Well, that's not happening. I'm not staying in that bedroom if they're gonna continuously fly around the house. I'm gonna stay out here where the light is." And my dad came out of my sister's bedroom. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just sitting here." He's like, "Get to bed." And I was like, I don't want to do that." So that was my very first ever experience. Like I never saw it again in that house ever at all. but it was really interesting. My sister, when me and my sister talked, it was she remembers it, but she said she remembers a face. I was like, you don't remember saying that you saw a witch? She's like, I could have said it was a witch, but she's like, I just remember seeing a face in the window that night. I was like, well, I saw the two figures, and it was really weird that I could see them as high as the trailers. Like I could, they were almost full body. Like shadow figures, you can never tell any kind of definition. You can just tell any descriptive factors, but you could always just tell that it is a person, and that's what it looked like. They looked like they were people, and I don't know why that it was that one particular night or what, but it scared the crap out of me as a 5-year-old for sure.
I'll bet. So even your sister never brought it up again.
Right. We didn't talk about it until we were a little bit older. I think I was in 7th grade, she was in 6th grade when we talked about it again. And then we didn't we when I first started the podcast, she was my co-host, and we did discuss it a couple times periodically while she was on a part of the show.
Yeah, that's a creepy one. I mean,
But
I have my experience with the four, so I get the darker than everything else around it. That's why they tend to stand out quite a bit. Even just besides the whole flying by a trailer that is really high off the ground, I get that.
yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, I really don't understand why it was just once. Like especially with the face in the window. So I've always, it's always boggled my mind, but then again, there's so much to this stuff that we will never understand or will ever be explained to us until we're over there, you know? So it was definitely interesting to me now, it wouldn't scare me now just because I've seen so many shadow people at this point. But as a 5-year-old, it was definitely freaky.
I'll
And
bet.
I used to imagine vampires and monsters being outside already. So to see that, I was just like, "Whoa, what the heck?"
So at that point, you were already aware of things like vampires and monsters, where you know books or movies, whatever had come across you guys as youngsters already.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Actually, that night we had just watched Ghostbusters 2.
Ah,
So, and my sister kind of thinks that that's the reason why she thinks that she saw, because she's like, maybe I made it up in my mind and I just think I saw something and I didn't. I was like, well, I definitely saw something. There was no way that there's no way that there was a reflection of anything or anything like that for a dark figure to go by the window like that, you know? So, but yeah, we were definitely aware of strange things already through movies and shows and stuff like that. Shortly after that, we moved in with my grandparents, and I used to see shadow figures all the time in their basement, and they were creepy to see. And they were always in the corner. They were under the stairs or like standing up against the lolly column in the basement. And I mean, every time my grand my grandfather would need something out of the basement, he would send me. I don't know why it was always me, but it was he'd go downstairs and get this in the such and such a room down there. He had like several different rooms. My brother actually had a bedroom down there, and that's where the Nintendo 64 was. So I absolutely had to go down to the basement anyways, just so I could go to his room so I could play video games. So I was like, I was willing to see shadow people to be able to play Mario and stuff. So, but yeah, my grandfather would be like, go downstairs and get this. And, I would go downstairs, but then I would sing to myself because for some reason as a kid, I thought if I was singing, that ghosts or monsters or whatever wouldn't harm me if I was serenading them. Like they're if I was a ghost, I'd be like, oh wow, this kid is singing. We don't want to hurt him if he's singing, kind of thing. I don't know. It was a weird thing to that went through my head, but that's what I always thought. If I sung, they wouldn't touch me or anything. So that's what I did, and then I'd get to the stairs and I'd be singing, and I'd stop singing and then just run up the stairs as fast as I could so nothing could grab me. But they never did, like, again, they never did anything. They never moved. So after a while, I kind of just got used to it and it was just whatever. And I'd just be like, oh, hey, at one point. But so, so I had to, at 9 years old, I was still living with my grandparents and I attempted, I attempted on my own life at 9 years old. And I think about 2 weeks after that, I was on the swing set and I saw something out of the corner of my eye and I kind of just turned my head to the other swing and there was a full body apparition. Well, I guess like I could see a full body, but it was very pale and see-throughy, like basically like you would see in a movie that how they would describe a ghost. But I couldn't see his face. His face was distorted, but it looked like he was wearing like a suit and tie, like a non-formal suit and tie. And I was staring at him, and he goes, "Be patient." And I was like, "About what?" And he was like, "You'll know." And in his lap, it looked like he had something stringy that I can never remember fully, but I associate it with either he had like a bunch of yarn and he was knitting something, or he had a bowl of noodles. But whatever he had was long and stringy. And right after our interaction, I looked down and I was like in a state of paralysis where I really wanted to run, but for whatever reason, I could not get my body to get up and move. And I stared at this rock that was on the ground for what seemed like forever. It was probably only a minute, maybe even less. And I finally got the courage to turn my head and look back at him, and he was gone. So I have absolutely no idea who this person was. I think he's an old man, but I'm not sure. Again, I couldn't see his face, but I did. I discussed this with Eric from the Uncomfortable podcast, and he asked me if I had anybody pass away before this incident, and I did have an uncle who was driving drunk and drove himself into a tree. And I wasn't allowed to go to his funeral because they did an open casket and they had to restructure his face because his face was was smashed essentially. So they didn't allow me as a child, or they didn't allow any children to go to his funeral except for his children. So maybe it could have been him, but I don't know at the same time. I couldn't tell you on that particular part.
So this apparition, he was seen a couple of weeks after your attempt on your own life, right? So did you ever figure out, was that tied into that, his words of be patient? Have you to this day maybe put that to anything? Was that even tied to that?
I think yes. Well, yeah, I think it has something to do. I think because I did end up I tried again when I was 13 and then I contemplated when I was 30. But as I was sitting there contemplating when I was 30, this experience kind of flashed in my head. And I I was my mom was never the greatest. There's a lot of shit between her and I. She took out a lot of anger on me as a child, especially after my dad left. And my sister and I know like it has a lot to do with the fact that I look like my dad. So there was a lot of violence onto me as at a young age. And I love my mom. She's my mom. And I don't fault her. I just think she had some healing that she needed to do. But anyways, so I found myself living in her basement at 30 years old with my two children. And I was sitting there with the gun in my lap, and I was just like, "Ah, man," and I was sitting there, and this encounter flashed through my head. I'm like, I'm 30 years old, 30 years old. I should have, should have shit figured out by now. Like, I did not expect my life to be in my mom's basement at 30 years old. And then I started thinking about be patient. And I was just like, what is that about? What is that about? And then just a couple years later, I had my own house. My kids and I go on frequent vacations. And I think it was just, things, it was just like a mantra. Like, you just got to wait for for good things to come your way. It's not, things don't happen in an instant, kind of thing. And ever since that day, I've practiced patience with a lot of things. I had anger issues due to my childhood where I was quick to, just like it was like a quick strike of a match. I was off the handle so quick. And ever since then, I think that's what it was meant for, was just for me to essentially calm down, you know. That's what I put it into, like literally that day. And it's almost like, I don't know, the best thing to associate it with like a guardian angel kind of thing.
That's
You know,
exactly what I
it
was going to
was,
ask you, if you thought that that's what that man was, is a guardian angel.
yeah. And I've never really spent my life being religious or anything like that. I think I do believe in God, and the strange thing is so my son is 16. He just turned 16, and he's all of a sudden started talking about scripture and his love for Jesus and stuff. And then my daughter randomly the other day, she's like, instead of an iPad for Christmas, I want a Bible. And I'm just like, what is going on right now? And I think whatever the power is, I think that it wants me to, I think it's trying to get into my heart, you know? That's what I think is happening right now, especially. And then with this encounter, I think I w I was meant to follow this path and, not only help people, because I've talked to a lot of people with mental health issues, people who have attempted on themselves as well. And I think it's for anybody out there that is thinking this stuff, like I think, out of all the things that God created, he felt like the world needed one of you. So I think everybody deserves a chance at life. And I don't, when I hear about, people taking it out on themselves, it breaks my heart. Uh, because there's so many things, people don't realize how loved they truly are, because we can't see it.
Well, Kevin, I'm so sorry that all that happened to you at such a young age. It's beyond fracturing. I can't even imagine going through all that. And I'm so happy that you seem to have pulled yourself out of, I mean, truly dark places a few times now. And I would hazard to say that I do agree with the whole, I think that was probably some kind of a guardian angel. Granted, he didn't show up prior to the first time, but he came when he needed to, or it came when it needed to, whatever we're going to say about that. But I hazard to say that whatever was in his lap, there's something more to that. And I hope that somebody out there listening goes, oh, I I had or heard of an experience like that, and there was something in this thing's lap or this person's lap or whatever it was, and you said it was yarn or noodles, whatever it was, it's too hard to tell. And the other thing was, you said that you couldn't discern a face. And I've had several people on that have had encounters with what they are 100% certain was an angel. And they had ice blue eyes, or blue eyes, very blue eyes, was something that's come up independently of one another, from people that have had experiences either recently or years and years ago. So, very, very interesting encounter and sighting and experience. And it definitely sounds like it was a profound one. And just those two words can be life changing. So, thank you for sharing that. That's fascinating.
Well, I used to, you know, it used to make me really emotional to tell that particular story, just based off the trauma around it. And I don't know, I think at this point, I feel like my mom does know that I tried because it was a lot of blood. You know, not to get too graphic, but it was on my arm, if you know what I mean. And we went to the emergency room. I told my mom that I fell out of a tree. And my doctor, he ended up being there, like my pe- pediatric doctor ended up being there that day, and he came into the room and he was holding onto my arm. It was bandaged up, and he was holding me by the wrist and holding my arm out. And he goes, "So this came from a tree?" And I go, "Yep." He goes, "I fell right out of it." And he just kind of like stared right into my eyes and was like, "Can you do me a favor?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Can you stay out of this tree?" And I was like,
Mm,
"Yes, yes, I can." Like, not even like really realizing it in the moment,
right.
but afterwards, I think he knew. Like, I think he knew what I had tried to do. And unfortunately, he actually, and I think this is why he knew, he ended up taking his own life when I was a teenager.
Oh, geez.
So, and a lot of, and his son was a year younger than me, so he was a grade under me. So it was definitely, and it was hard on him. I think his son later on passed away from overdose, but it was probably because, like, I mean, again, I say it all the time on my own podcast. You just, all you're doing is transferring trauma to somebody else, and I know you don't want that, anybody that thinks this way. So, but yeah, he definitely, I think he knew, and I think that's why he knew, is because he had similar thoughts.
Absolutely.
So, um, but yeah, so the next experience after that, is really interesting. So I did wear glasses at one point in time. Around when I was 8, 9 is when I got the glasses. I used to have really chronic headaches, migraines, to the point where like I could not function. And so my mom took me to see if I needed glasses, and they were like, "Yep, you need glasses." So that I got glasses, and I remember one morning that it was early November, and there was like a light dusting of snow on the ground, and my sister wanted to go outside and she wanted to play. So she asked me to go outside with her. So I did. And we used to play like Monster Hunter or whatever, something like that. We used to pretend we were hunting aliens and monsters and stuff out in the woods. And so this was about a year later. I was 10, and we're out there, we found some, I think they were squirrel tracks. But the way the squirrels run, their front paws or their back paws are right next to each other, and their front paws are outstretched, so it looked like a three-prong footprint. And I was like, "Oh, there's an alien out here." So we start walking through the woods, pretending we're hunting an alien, and all of a sudden, like, there was like a tint of blue in the air. Like, everything that I was seeing was tinted blue. And then all of a sudden the snow's gone, and it's just leaves. And about 10 feet in front of me was a little village of mushroom people. And they were just, 3 inches tall ish. They looked like mushrooms. They didn't look like people. They were just moving around like people. They didn't look like Toad from Mario or anything like that. They just looked like regular out in the wilderness mushrooms, just moving around like they were people. And they were all collecting like little twigs and stuff. And they were building this fire in this little village. And I get a tap on the back of my head, and my head kind of just pushes forward, and my glasses fall off my face. And I feel something on my shoulder, and I kind of just turn my head to the left, and I'm looking at this mushroom on my freaking shoulder. And I'm like looking at it, and telepathically it said, he goes, "You don't need those." And I go, "My glasses?" He's like, "Yes." And just like that, as soon as he said yes, at the snap of a finger, my sister's standing there instead. And I look back around, and the village is gone and everything. There's no mushroom on my shoulder. My sister goes, "Are you all right?" And I go, I lost my glasses." So she comes over and we're trying to look for my glasses on the ground and she steps on them. And I just hear crunch and I'm like, oh my God. And I pick them up and my glasses are ruined. And I run home, completely forgetting about this experience, and tell my mother that my glasses are broken. My mom's like, you have an appointment in a couple weeks. I'm not going to get you a new pair. If your prescription has changed, then I'm just wasting money at this point. So I went a couple weeks without glasses. And then by the time my appointment rolls around, they test my eyes and everything. And my doctor's sitting there reviewing the paperwork from the test. And he turns around and he goes, "Hey man, you don't need glasses." And my mom's like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, well, I mean, his eyes have improved. Maybe wear them like a slight something for, watching TV, reading a book, or anything like that. His eyes are good." And my mom's like, she's like, "I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense." And he goes, Apparently, the glasses had helped. I mean, he goes, I don't know. Sometimes the eyes just need a little help." And so my mom's like, "Well, I'm not going to get him glasses if he doesn't need them." So I haven't worn glasses ever since, and my vision has been fine. So, but I will say this, that I don't remember this experience organically. I actually did a regression. So everything about the mushroom people came out of that regression therapy, but I remember everything around it. I remember going out into the woods. I remember my sister stepping on my glasses, and I remember going to the doctors to get my eyes retested and not needing glasses anymore. So, but did I imagine were the mushroom people just a dream, and that I dreamt it around this time, and when I regressed, I've remembered the dream? Or did it really happen? Did I really walk through a portal of some kind? I can't say for sure because I'm only remembering it out of a regression, and it could be something that I completely made up in my head, maybe a story that I thought of or something like that at one point back then, and not be a real experience, but it feels real.
Now, if I'm prying, you just let me know. We'll move off of this. But why? And if this is coming up, just say this is going to be coming up. But why did you do the regression therapy in the first place?
So there's a lot of things around. So I was doing therapy to begin with, and we were talking a lot about, my mom, and just, I was like, I remember there was an incident before the headache started, essentially. And so and I was like, I just don't remember what had happened. And so I regressed to try to remember. And around this time, it, it's basically, you know, I was concussed at one point when I was young due to no fault of my own.
Hmm.
And that's when the headaches really started. So that's what I was doing, a regression. I was just trying to remember events around between the ages of 6 and 12. But I know so she wanted me to focus on my childhood at my grandparents. So that's what we were focusing on. And so I did get something out of it, which has caused me to not want to speak to my mother anymore. And also this mushroom people.
Gotcha. No, thank you so much for going through that.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And I don't know if I want to regress ever again, to be honest with you.
So it was just that one regression session.
Yes, yes, there was
Wow.
three different things that came out of it. It was really it was quite profound, and I'm like, I again, like, so I'm telling her this story, and she's asking me to go into more detail as we're doing it, because I think it's like, what's the freaking word that I'm trying to look for? I'm in a hypnosis state, and
Mm-hmm.
she's she recorded it, and she's asking me all these questions, and I couldn't quite give her enough detail on the mushroom people. So to me, that makes me feel like it may have been some kind of a dream. So we're listening to it and she's talking about it. She's like, this could have been, this could have been a lot of different things. It might not be a real experience. So she's like, just so you're aware, it could have been just something that was in your head. It could have been a dream that you're remembering and stuff like that. So that's why I say that I don't remember it organically, and I have to let people know that it could be something that was just fake that I was thinking of at the time.
I mean, and neither one of us will be, but maybe you read more about this than other people would have. Is that something in the ophthalmology world that would actually occur, that you could wear glasses for a month or a few months or a year, whatever it is, and it can actually correct the initial problem enough to where you never need glasses again?
I haven't really, personally, haven't really asked those questions. I think because I was just 10 and just was happy to not have to wear them again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I
I mean, I
just
know that the
never
doctor
was
kind of said that, but I've never heard of that. But then again, I've not needed glasses so far, knock on wood, so I'm not familiar with these kinds of things. But that's just interesting. How long
right.
had you been wearing the glasses in total that day
About
that
a
you guys
year.
went in?
About a
Okay.
year.
A year. Okay. And you had been wearing
Yeah.
them religiously every day as you were supposed to, per the doctor?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, people might
Yes.
email immediately and go, "Yes, that's a thing, guys. Like, it's, you wear it for a while and things correct." But I was not aware of that. So, but it is interesting, the timing of. I mean, if that is a dream, to explain why all of a sudden after your sister had stepped on them that your brain went, "Oh, it's fine. You don't need those anyway." But then your eyes actually didn't need them. I mean, I don't know. That all is very strange, the timing of it. And then coming up later, your gray matter coming up later with this mushroom people village, and one of them telling you, "Oh, you don't need those anymore." I mean, that is strange. And I, again, very
Yeah.
interesting.
It took me a really long time to tell anybody too, because I just was like, I'm crazy. I'm losing my mind here. I don't think I want to tell anybody about any of this, but eventually I did. And the first person that I told was my sister. So, and she's like, because I was asking her what she remembers of that. She's like, I just remember being out in the woods and stepping on your glasses. That's about it. And I go, you don't remember like me? Yeah, did I stand there? She's like, look, like this obviously is a memory that like shaped who you are. So you're gonna remember it a lot better than I do. So, and you know, she's like, I broke your glasses, I broke Chris's glasses, I broke Ryan's glasses, which are my two brothers. Both of my brothers have glasses and have had glasses their entire lives. So yeah, she's like, I broke everybody's glasses, man. She's like, I don't really remember it. So
Right.
it was
This
interesting.
It sure is. No, and this area that you walked into initially, you said it was this tent of blue, and then you see this entire scene. Do you recall, and this is a long time ago, and if you don't, that's fine, of course. Do you recall that besides the fact that you could hear this little this mushroom man speaking to you at some point, do you remember it being extra quiet beyond what should be going on in a forest? Do you recall that part of it at all?
Yeah. Actually, now that you say that, I don't remember hearing anything other than him speaking,
Because forests are
which is pretty
normally,
interesting.
yeah, they're quite noisy places. There's birds chirp, not all the time, but there's birds chirping, or if there's water around, there's things moving around there. Squirrels can sound like a grown man in dry brush. So
Yeah.
the fact that just ties in with a lot of things that I've heard about. You go into these other places that align
Hmm.
and parallel with places that we would walk every day and not think anything of it, and they're muted. They're like just completely quiet and silent. And as you know, Kevin, so many people have talked about that other side of Sasquatch that no one even likes to hear. They do the Dumb and Dumber la 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 with their fingers in their ears. And that is the fact that some people have said that they go out searching for Bigfoot or encounter Bigfoot and they come back with some kind of a healing, right? So, and actually, that's something that Jeremiah and I are going to cover on an upcoming episode of our Patreon Bigfoot Bites stuff. But, and not that I'm saying that this is exactly what has gone on, but I mean, there are some similarities there.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's and the funny thing is too that now that you say that when I'm thinking about it, I don't think I ever even heard the crackle of the fire either that they were building because it was well to them it was big, but it would be pretty close to just a normal sized fire for us, you know.
Mm.
So it was I don't think I ever remember hearing it crack. I know I saw it, but now that you bring up the silence of it, yeah, I don't think I even heard the crackling of that.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I've heard similar things before. And incredible things and sometimes scary things happening in these muted places. I mean, there's even a episode of my show, it's one of my favorites, called The Muted Places, where I'm not going to go through it. I think I've explained this so many times. People are like, oh my God, she's going to explain muted places again. But it's one of my favorites, and it's a similar situation. And I do wonder if you had been in there longer in this, let's just assume this was an actual parallel extra place that you walked into. If you had been in there long enough to have some kind of a thought like, what's going on? I'm a little scared. I'm a little nervous, to turn around and try to call to your sister or say something to your sister, even though she's right there, would she have heard you? Because that's exactly something that had gone on in this Muted Places episode, where there was this concern and people that should have heard him while he was in this little weird silent space, they couldn't. And he was in charge, and they should have said, hey, yeah, we're good. Like, we're here. I can see you. You're fine. Blah, blah. They were ignoring the boss, basically. So that's really fascinating to me.
I'm gonna have to listen to that episode first of all.
I would
I've
like,
listened
yeah,
to quite a few of your episodes now.
I would like to get your opinion on that because, and maybe it would, just stoke a memory and that's another thing I wanted to ask you in regards to the regression therapy. Once this, and you admit it could be a dream, you're not saying this 100% happened in the waking daylight hours of your childhood. However, once this regression therapy occurred, did you find that once it was in there that you were like, oh, that's right, and then there was this that happened and this that happened, or was it mostly just all of it came out there and that was the foundation and substrate of it, and there wasn't these little pieces flying in once you were out of this hypnotic state and getting this information?
Yeah, it was quite a bit like, oh, in this, yeah, because because that same day was also one of the incidences between me and my mother and I. So because it was not early, super early morning, but we were supposed to go somewhere, and I couldn't remember where we were supposed to go, and I still don't remember where we were supposed to go that day. But as I'm talking about us having to go somewhere, my mother getting upset with me that day and things happening. And then I was like, but also that same day, my sister and I went out into the woods. Like that's how it progressed. And then and she did do a really good job at trying to press me for more information, but I was like, that's it. And then we moved on to the third thing that came out of it, which was my concussion. So it wasn't like right away either. It was a really long process, and I'm so surprised that she hung in that long for me to go through all of it.
Oh,
But
but I mean like
yeah,
once the therapy is done, like a month later, a year later, years later, did anything else, just you're doing dishes one day and something else popped into your mind that occurred during this little experience with this village, or was
oh,
that it?
that was it. That's
Okay.
all. That's all, and nothing else has popped up.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I can't. That's all I remember. The only thing is that I've talked to several people about it now, and they're just like, "Oh, it's fairies." That's what they immediately go to. You saw fairies. You went into a fairy realm. You know their doors are hidden, and you can just walk into them randomly all the time. And you hear stories. I mean, there are stories out there like that, but I'm not because it's mushroom. They're mushrooms, and it has to do with nature and stuff. People assume fairies, which I guess could totally be.
Could
But
be.
yeah, no, I've
Yeah, could
never
be.
was just like randomly. Oh, I remember this and that. But so
Yeah, I mean, I've heard good face stories and bad face stories. They're not all light and love and sitting on flowers and spreading fairy dust that makes you happy. Sometimes they're
you know,
terrifying. So it could be. Who knows? As you well said in the very beginning, we don't have the answers, but we can talk about what we think might be going on.
right, right, absolutely. I think that's the best thing that we can do is just speculate and tell our stories, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all we can do right now. But I can get into some interesting stories that I had as an adult, if you'd like.
Absolutely.
All right, so this one also makes me feel crazy. It was 2014. So my ex-wife and I decided to move out into the middle of the woods in farmland, Shapley, Maine, to be exact. If any of your listeners happen to be from this area in Maine, they know how remote Shapley can be. Um, so I'm driving home from work one day, in broad daylight. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and this coyote comes trudging across the road in front of me. I'm literally like I could see my house from where I was. And I stop, and the coyote stops in front of me as well, and he stares at me. And I'm like, what in the world is wrong with this coyote? And it was actually for a coyote, it was huge. It was like German Shepherd size. And it looked really clean, like it could have been somebody's dog. And I'm like, but it's coyote colors and everything. It doesn't have German Shepherd colors. There's no collar or anything. But it was for coyote size, it was big. And coyotes are out there all the time because we lived right next to a farm, and they were always out in that the field. So this he stares at me. It felt like a good 5 minutes. It was probably seconds, to be honest with you, but it felt like a good couple of minutes that we were just staring at into each other's eyes. And he's just like starts walking, and he walks into the woods. I pull up to where he entered the woods, and I'm watching him because I got this like weird feeling from him. And I'm watching him walk through the woods, and he stops again, and he turns around and he stares at me. And I'm like, what is wrong with this dog or coyote or whatever the hell it is? And he stares at me for another minute and turns around, starts walking towards this big pine tree. And this pine tree is probably way too big for me to even clasp my arms around to hug. And there's right on the other side of this tree, it's like a downgrade. It's a pretty steep hill. And he gets to it and he puts his paw out like he's like a regular like he's a human arm, like he just puts his paw out like he's supporting himself up against this tree. And I swear I s- I still feel a little crazy about this because maybe I'm just hallucinating it, but I swear his paw turned into a human hand to support himself to get over this embankment, because normally dogs, coyotes, whatever, they would just leap over it with their front paws first. They would never, it wouldn't have been a forethought to try and climb over it. So that was weird in itself. But I swear I saw this thing's paw turn into a human hand. And I was just like, whoa. And I raced home. I ran inside. My ex-wife was doing the dishes. And I go, you never believe what I just saw. And she's like, what? I was like, a coyote. And she's like, in the middle of the day? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, wow, that is crazy. And I go, yeah, but guess what? Its paw turned into a human hand. And she's like, shut up, you're stupid. And I was like, yeah, maybe I am, but pretty sure I saw that. And she's like, you're crazy. So that was I'd like a shapeshifter or something, maybe. Maybe it could have been lighting and I just think I saw a human hand. I don't know, but it blew my mind. I was like, I have to tell anybody and everybody about this occurrence because that was wild.
Yeah, the old shapeshifter skinwalkers come to mind, right? Which can be
Yes.
probably even more terrifying than whatever the hell a dog man is, unless that's what they all are too. I don't, it could be. So, did you
Yeah.
go down? And you probably wouldn't feel like doing this if you were freaked out about it. But did you walk down there and see if there was, I don't know what the substrate is in Maine at that time of year, and if there would be any tracks or evidence of an actual creature walking through there or going down that embankment? But did you go down?
I did. I did go in there the next day just to be like, what what is going on out here? I did I did see like, like there's plenty of deer tracks through there, and you can see paths, like animal paths, where they're like you can just tell that something has been trudging through there in that area. Because all you got to do, it's like you got to walk the same path twice in order to create a path. So it was pretty bare through there. There's a lot of different tracks. The main track that I could see were deer tracks, so I couldn't tell if there was anything else out there. But it was the next day I went out there and I stood up against that tree and it was pretty steep, so I couldn't really I felt like if I was to walk down I'd fall. That's how steep it got. So I didn't go too far, but it was just like I felt like a crazy person. I was like, somebody should put me in a hospital with a straitjacket and not so I can hug myself. Like I don't know what's happening with my brain right now.
What about, I mean, especially, I guess, once you started the podcast, did you look into any dogman reports in the area or even straight up just paranormal, the weirdest stuff that you can find on the web for, shapeshifters or skinwalkers in that area? You said this is Chapley, Maine?
Shapley, yep. Shapleigh, which is there's a couple of dogman type stories in close to the area. I think there was one in Gorham, which isn't super close, but kind of. But I do know this. I do know there's a lot of mines in that area. I do know that Indian tribe was displaced from that area, and I do know that there was a major fire in that area at some point in its history. I actually talked to Aaron about this, Aaron Deese, and he looked into it too. And he goes, there's a lot of telltale signs that I look for Dogman, and you have all three. So, because I had him on my podcast to talk about Dogman territory, in the LBL, that documentary you guys did out there,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, there's a lot of similarities. People being displaced and in mines and a lot of that. So, because I do have another story that I thought was a demon, but I think it might be an actual dog man. So this story that I just told you is I think if it's a skinwalker, it would make sense just because of there was a Indian tribe out there. I know that skinwalkers is more like, what is it? It's a Cherokee thing or something like, or not Cherokee. What am I freaking thinking? It's like the western side. Navajo. There we go. Navajo. It's more of a Navajo thing. And So I don't know. I haven't really heard for tribes up in New England. I haven't really heard any shapeshifters stories, but I do. There is a lot of lore for the tribes up here for Sasquatch, which is pretty interesting. I personally have never encountered anything that I could even attribute to a Bigfoot or anything like that, but it's pretty interesting. So I'll tell you the other story too. So it also has coyotes in it, funny enough. So it was 2016. It was the fall. So I think it was October. My ex-wife and I had just split up, so I was in the house alone. I just had my two dogs, and it's the same house out in Shapley. And so the property is sectioned off by these big rock walls, like just random rocks that people found out in the wilderness, and they decided to build a rock wall out of them. And one of the rocks in this rock wall is this huge boulder, and it was taller than me. So the boulder is like 6 feet tall. So there's a little bit of a tree line, but you can see through the trees to see the field that was next door. So it's in the middle of the night, and I wake up to my dogs barking their heads off like crazy. They're scratching at the wall right underneath the window and everything. And I'm like, what the heck is happening? I throw my pillows at them, trying to shut them up. And then after a little bit, I decide to get up and look out the window to see what the heck is happening. And I see just to the left of my house on in the field, I can see a pack of coyotes, which they don't normally like hunt in a pack, but I know they kind of move around in a pack. But the weird thing is that they were just running towards there. It was almost maybe they were playing, I guess, but they were running towards the road, and then they would run back across the field towards the woods that would be behind my house, but they were in the field next to the house. So they would just run back and forth. I'm like, what the heck is happening? And this whole time, my dogs are still losing their minds. And then I see a coyote coming down my driveway, and it was really small and it was limping. And I was like, oh, we got to hurt one. So I leave my bedroom and I go to my front door and I flick the outside light on, and my dogs followed me, still barking their heads off, scratching at the door, trying to get out the door. And the coyote comes to a stop just like right on the cusp of where the my outside light could reach. So she didn't come, or he didn't come all the way into the light, just kind of like stood just outside it. And I'm looking at her and I'm just like, I feel like I got to go out there and help this coyote. And I was like, and I know when there's a lot of them, you don't want to be around coyotes. Coyotes typically are more scared of humans than we are of them. But when there's more than one, they can be dangerous. So I look towards the field through the window on my door, and I can still see them running back and forth. And I was like, I just don't want them to be able to see me if I go out there. So I look, I see them, and then I tell my dogs to shut up, and I unlock the door, and then I look one more time, and there's these two big red eyes right where that boulder is, above the boulder. But I could clearly, with the moonlight and stuff, I can clearly tell that whatever this thing is standing behind the boulder. And there wasn't enough light to tell what this thing was, but whatever it was really big. And I could see red glowing eyes, and I immediately was like, there's a freaking demon in the woods. And I locked the door, and then I shut the light off. And then as soon as I shut the light off, my dog stopped barking, stopped scratching at the door, and that coyote that was in my driveway perks up and turns around and runs out of the driveway, not limping or anything. And I was like, what in the world? So I look back at those eyes, and I'm looking at this thing, and it looks like I'm overcome with this sense of dread. And I'm just like, Satan is coming to get me tonight. There's a freaking demon in the woods, and it wants to eat me. And I immediately run and I get my rifle. I throw the magazine in and I pull the bolt action to enter around into the barrel. And I sit on my couch, and both my dogs not saying a word. Both of them sat on each side of me, and we stared at the window that went to the backyard where the trees come pretty close to my backyard, come pretty close to my house, and that's where the wood line is for the forest. So this thing could have easily traveled through those trees to that back door, that back window. And yeah, so we sat there scared out of our minds, or at least I was. I'm pretty sure like they might have been too, because they just immediately as I felt the fear, they stopped reacting to the coyotes, and it was almost like they completely shut down as well. And I woke up the next morning, even in with the sun up and everything. I ended up being late for work because I was afraid to go outside that morning. So that was by far one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. And I always associated it with being some sort of demon or whatever. But once I started listening to podcasts and found some paranormal cryptid stuff and started listening to people's stories that have had dogman encounters, I was like, I think that might have been a dogman. Because I can't tell what it was, so I can't say for sure. But it had the red eyes. It was with coyotes, which I've heard some stories. Not all stories are associated with coyotes, but I'm almost thinking that if it was, right, it was coming in to snatch a coyote, and then it saw an opportunity where it might be able to get a human too, maybe. I don't know. And was just watching the house, or maybe even was watching that coyote, because that coyotes, I guess, from after this experience, I started researching coyotes a little bit, and apparently sometimes they do pretend to be injured to draw other animals to them so that they can attack them. So I guess there's a lot of stories where they've drawn dogs out of houses or their yards into the woods, and there would be like two or three coyotes on one dog. So I was just like, it was pretty interesting. So I know that coyote in the driveway was definitely pretending to be injured, but whether this red-eyed creature was working with the coyotes, I don't think it was, but it definitely it was definitely there.
That's pretty fascinating, and it's so cool that you actually looked that up about coyotes. I didn't know they're smart enough to have one pretend to be injured to lure something out that the whole pack can then get. So then you were thinking that now take this. We'll about this tall boy with the red eyes in a minute, but the thinking is then that this coyote, this injured quote unquote coyote, was interested in because your dogs were popping off going nuts before the red-eyed dude came into the picture. You were thinking that was their thinking, like, oh well, let's get these dogs outside and we can have dinner.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
And isn't that interesting that you had this compulsion to go outside to help this small injured coyote? Also interesting that it sounds like it was maybe one of the smaller ones in the group. So that was a double whammy, right? It's a small injured creature. And I'm sure if if you did let them out, they probably would have gone right for that coyote, right? So how quickly your compulsion changed from this compassion towards this creature to utter bolt the doors, get the gun, trying to stay up all night, which of course you did fall asleep at some point, even though you were in abject terror, which we hear a lot, right? You probably don't remember even when you fell asleep.
Yep.
You were probably trying to stay awake.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. When I did wake up, my head was tilted back over the back of the couch. So I was like, my neck was bent. I had such a pain in the back of my neck the whole next day because of the way I slept. But I had no intention of falling asleep, but eventually I did. Yeah.
And that could just be in a lot of these cases adrenaline finally leaving the system and your body's just like, "No, listen, I need sleep." But we hear that time and time again in these situations where people are like sitting in a tent, they're surrounded by something that they think might actually kill them. They fall asleep and even themselves are going, "I have no idea how I would fall asleep in that situation." We hear that a lot. Whatever that is, who knows? Okay, so going to the boulder and the whatever it is with the red eyes, this boulder you said is about 6 feet high. You're quite sure that it wasn't sitting or perched or crouched atop the boulder. You do feel like it was standing behind and peering over it.
Yes, yes. Because of the way the shadows were from the moonlight were in this area from the trees and stuff. Like there was a good amount of light on the rock wall, and I just feel like it wasn't close enough to be sitting on the rock wall. You know what I mean? If that makes any kind of sense. Like I
Gotcha.
feel like it wasn't like hiding behind the boulder. It just happened to be it maybe was like a foot away from the boulder, but obviously it at the distance that I could be incorrect, but it definitely the size of the eyes kind of gave away to a bigger creature than something that could sit on top of that.
Now, the glowing eyes, would you say that they were glowing from within, or did you have some kind of floodlights or something that would cause its eye shine, basically?
I feel like it was shining from within. Yeah, the only light that was on was the my outside light on that I turned on, and as soon as I turned it off, those eyes were still glowing.
Well, that's creepy. Oh man, and you're there alone in the middle of the nowhere. You painted a real creepy picture there, Kevin. So no discernment of head shape at all, right? I mean, I'm sure that you were quite focused on these freaky ass glowing from within eyes, but there was no other shoulders, neck, head shape that you could discern.
No, no, no. There because right behind there, I mean, maybe the darkness from behind the boulder and combined with the shadows and stuff, maybe there was something, but I couldn't remember trying to remember it and trying to picture it. All I can remember are the eyes.
Ah, understandable. Did you go the next day in daylight to check behind the boulder to see if there was any evidence left behind?
I did not. I did. I actually, because my kids used to walk up and down that rock wall after this incident. I did not. I didn't want anything to do with that rock wall. They were out there one day near that boulder, and I yelled at them. Well, I yelled to them. I didn't yell at them, but I yelled to them. I was like, "Hey, get off that rock wall!" And they were so confused. And I was just like, "Just stay away from that rock wall. I don't like it. I don't
So
like you. I don't want you guys to get hurt."
they don't know this story because you don't want to scare them.
They do now because, well, at least my son does. I don't know if my daughter does because my son listens to my podcast.
Yep.
So I've told it a couple times on my own show. So, but they do now. They know now.
Do you have water nearby? Running water, ponds, streams, anything like that?
So there is a river. It's called the Mousam River that is fairly close. So it would be more in the direction of where the shape shifting coyote went. So, which is right across the street from me. So if you go down like another mile, there would be a significant river right there.
And while you were chatting, I just quickly Googled because I mean I'm in Nevada, in Las Vegas. We have coyotes actually that come in further into the city than you would ever think. In my mind, I guess just like people with Bigfoot are like, Bigfoot's not just in Washington State. Here's my mind going, I just see coyotes and I think of the desert. Who knew there was Google, the old Google machine says there are estimated to be between 10,000 and 12,000 coyotes in Maine. That's fascinating. I didn't know that. So you
Yeah.
mentioned that there are farms around there. Have you ever heard of, or are these people that you speak to, your neighbors that have said, livestock is, I don't know what kind of farms these are, but, are there livestock missing or strange killings or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I haven't. So I had never talked to anybody, but this is something pretty interesting is every once in a while there'd be a farm animal in my yard. Like maybe there was damage done to a gate or a fence and there's been turkey in my yard, which some of them were kept turkey. So because they had the tags on their legs, some of them were wild. Woke up one morning to pigs in my yard. I don't know how they got there or where they came from, but I opened my door to try and go out there and it spooked them and they ran. There was a cow in my yard once. So either it's a mishap of the farmers or something is letting them out. And maybe, I don't know. And so I could definitely see livestock going missing randomly, not only from from the experiences of random waking up or just like doing the dishes and looking out the window and seeing these random animals in my yard is not only was it funny, but thinking back on it now that you ask, there's maybe something maybe some livestock did go missing and damage had been done to for these animals to be able to get out the next day.
And to be clear, all of these animals and creatures in your yard were alive. None of them were deceased or torn apart or anything like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then you would,
Correct. Yes, they were live.
I mean, I don't, well, who goes around picking up turkeys, I guess, but I guess you would just get in touch with that farmer and say, hey, come get your cow, come get your pigs, come get your turkey. Like, I mean, what's the process there? Because then I'm wondering if, maybe the next time that happens, it could open the door for a little bit more conversation about, well, gosh, well, how often does this happen? Like, is there latches that only people can open, or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just, my mind gets going with stuff like that because I do wonder, because it is such a sensitive subject sometimes, that, killings or things being let out of pins that only certain things can open, you know what I mean?
Right.
It gets into a gray area that people just don't like to talk about anyway. It may not go anywhere. But okay, so any odd findings around the house? Anything that you were like, oh God, what in the hell is this? Or, oh, that's weird. And maybe it fell out of your mind for the most part. But once you start to put things together, I don't know, maybe it's something. Anything weird around the house?
No. No, not that I could think of. And I've gone hunting out in the woods behind that house before that incident had taken place, and I never saw anything that I can think of in this particular moment
No,
that
no
was
problem. No problem. It was
weird.
just, yeah, just trying to poke a little bit. No problem there. Yeah, I appreciate you just even sharing what you have. So, I mean, and much like Aaron said, there's just certain things that are usually across the board with quote unquote dogman, if that's what we're talking about, is, and I
Yeah.
do like the fact that you said demon/dogman, because we don't know what these things are, but we do know that another aspect of them is that, I don't know what the percentile is, but it's probably over 80, maybe 90% of the time, people have what you described, and that is a feeling of just complete terror, complete dread. You went from wanting to go outside to helping that coyote to going, I'm never leaving this damn house again, even in the daylight. I was even late for work and I didn't even want to go outside in the daylight. That is something that we hear time and again. And the fact that people can see a 10-foot tall Bigfoot and not feel like that, there's something different there. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason that
For sure.
you see something that's 8 to 10 feet tall that could smash your head like a little orange. You take Andre the Giant smashing an orange on a table. That's what that dude is going to do to you if he gets a hold of you, because people don't appreciate 8 to 10 feet unless you actually measure that out. It's very humbling. And then you add the width and the weight to it, forget it. So tell me why this dread doesn't we don't hear about it that much with Bigfoot. And a lot of times they're a
Hmm.
shit ton bigger than these dogmen. So there's definitely something else going on there. And that's my opinion, but
Yeah, you're not wrong. There's a lot of stories dealing with Bigfoot that people they're like, oh, he just cares about nature and he cares about us and like he just doesn't want us around. So and it's like a respect kind of thing, but when it comes to Dogman, which is has been described as significantly smaller than Bigfoot, it's this ultimate fear base of get the fuck away as fast as possible kind of
yeah.
thing. And I
Yes.
find that extremely interesting.
After that experience, and again, just like before, I'm not trying to tack anything else on and with finding things around your home, but did anything then start to occur in the home? Like even if it was extremely bad dreams or knocking or lights or whatever it was. And I'm not trying to, again, if there's nothing, there's nothing. But sometimes things like that tend to
Mhm.
kick up after an experience like that.
No, actually, nothing happened in the house after that. Actually, to be honest with you, I met a girl around that same time, and after the experience, I ended up moving in with her and moving out of that house pretty short, like not really quick, but within a matter of months,
Okay.
I was gone.
You were probably a little relieved then.
Yeah, yes, I was. And then, like, as far as experiences, it like almost nothing happened. Actually, nothing did happen for a really long time until I moved into the house that I'm living in now, which might be haunted. I'm not well, no, it is haunted. There's one room in this house that is haunted, and my kids have experienced stuff here.
I will do tell.
All right, so here in this house, it's pretty much just shadow people, which doesn't bother me. But I would see them at night. I leave my bedroom door open in case one of my kids need me for whatever reason. So I was seeing shadow people every night in the hallway. They never did anything. They never moved. But like if I started walking towards them, they would dissipate. Or if I said, you're not welcome here or something like that, they would disappear. And then so and this house is where I started the podcast. So as soon as I started talking to people, that's when things started happening where I would have my hat would be hanging in my room and it would get all of a sudden get thrown across the room. Or there was one night I was sitting in my room and my dog was on the floor and I was talking to somebody, recording with somebody, and it was just me and my dog. My kids were with their mother, and it's one of the same dogs that experienced dog whatever that was out in Shapley with me. The other one has since gone. But anyway, so we're sitting there in my room and I'm recording with somebody and I hear a knock at my door. And I look down at my dog thinking like maybe her tail wrapped against the wall or the floor or something, and she's just laying there still, not moving at all. And I'm just like, and I look at the door and I go, "Come in." I mean, I don't know who I would have expected, to be honest with you. Like, I was just, "Come in," and then nothing happened. And I was just like, what in the world? So I got up and I opened the door. Nobody's there. So then I had to like stop recording and I was like, I just have to check my house real quick. So I went through my house and nobody was there. And I was like, well, something wanted me to know that they're here. And then I think it was probably about a week after that, I had the door open and I wasn't recording yet, but I was getting ready to. And my son's room is across the hall, and I see out of the corner of my eye something move across the moonlight. So there was moonlight coming through his window, and something just went across his room, in the back of his room towards his window. And I turned my head real quick and I looked in there, and then I saw his picture. There was a picture next to his window and it was just kind of like swaying, like something had brushed up against it. And then I was just like, in the name of Jesus, get out of here. You're not welcome here. And I just felt like I had to say it for whatever reason. It didn't feel negative. I wasn't scared, but I was just like, I feel like I should say that. And then, so this was another really scary experience for me that is pretty close to what I think the Dogman experience was. And so I had just started seeing another woman, and she had just left the house. And I'm in bed. I'm sprawled out like a freaking starfish, and all of a sudden I wake up to my name being called. And my name's being called. I pick up my head and I see this figure coming into my room. And it's very like this was the first it was very shadowy. I couldn't tell any distinguishing features of like a person or anything, but it was a lot different than any of the other shadow figures I've experienced because I could tell that there was long flowing hair and it was a voluptuous woman, like very curvy woman. And she was entering my room, but the weird thing about her movement was it was almost like a C3PO kind of thing, like very stiff robotic movement, and it was fast. And immediately as soon as I saw her, I was scared and I was in a state of paralysis after just so I was in sleep paralysis. I couldn't move anything but my eyes after I had picked up my head. And I'm looking at her and I could move my fingers a little bit and I could see my phone sitting on my bed right next to me and I'm trying to get it so that I can light up the room to see who this person was or what it was. And so my eyes are just like darted to the side of my head and I could see my fingers moving and I could see my phone and I'm just trying desperately and I'm like going back and forth from looking at my hand to looking at this figure. And just as it's like about to get like at the foot of my bed, about to climb onto my bed, I broke out of the paralysis. I grabbed my phone, turned the light on my phone, and sat up with it and just looked around. Nothing was there. There was not a thing. And my as soon as it was like as soon as I lit up the room, all of a sudden I could breathe and I was breathing heavy. It wasn't like during the paralysis, it wasn't that I wasn't breathing. It was almost like like a just a regular breathing, but for the amount of fear that I was feeling, I felt like I should have been breathing deeper, I guess, if that makes any kind of sense. But as soon as I sat up and knew that there wasn't anything in there, it was like whatever was holding me. It was almost like it had a grip on me and I couldn't do anything. And so as soon as I sat up, I was breathing heavy, I started sweating, and I was just like, what in the world was that? And of course I had to go to the bathroom at like in that moment. And I was like, I don't want to leave this freaking room, man. So I did the thing again, if you're still here, I don't want you here. You're not welcome in the name of Jesus. Get out of here. I rebuke you. And I go, if you're in this hallway, because I did get up to go to the bathroom, and I was like, if you're out here, I was like, you're not welcome. And I jumped out of my room and I karate chopped the air in the hallway because everybody knows karate chops kill ghosts, and you have to do something to make yourself feel safe, I guess.
Absolutely.
So I so I did that, and then I as soon as I jumped out, I was like, all right, I think whatever it was is gone now, and I was able to go back to sleep and all that. So, but that oh my God, I it's that time seeing that shadow figure coming towards my bed and seeing what I think is Dogman. Those were the two most terrifying encounters I've ever had. And I don't want to experience either one of them ever again because it was scary. And I don't know if like with this shadow person, I don't even know if it would have done anything, but the fact that I felt this insatiable fear, I was just like, "Oh my God, like this is crazy." Whatever it was not a shadow figure. I think it was using because I became so comfortable with seeing shadow people that I think it was pretending to be a shadow person to make me comfortable. But immediately when I saw it, I was like, I'm not comfortable, you know?
Do you know anything about that house?
I know that it was built in the 40s. I know that my neighbor, her sister, her sister-in-law used to own this house, and she said she said her her sister-in-law never had any stories about this. So as far as I know, there hasn't been any deaths in the house or anything like that. So that's about as much as I know. It is built around the same time as the two houses on each side of it was too. So
So in the beginning, when you were speaking about this house, you said that you would see the quote unquote regular shadow figures quite a bit. Once you saw this, I'm going to use air quotes again, woman, did anything change about the frequency or seeing the quote unquote regular shadow figures, or did that all just go back to normal essentially?
actually, is after this, they stopped. I stopped seeing them. I haven't seen them since,
Oh.
which is really weird. But I also had there was a woman that I had on the show. She is a psychic medium and a remote viewer and stuff, and she did come to my house remotely, and she said she removed something that was hiding in the corner of my room. She said it was kind of like cowering, and it was like a shadow figure, is what she said. And ever since she came here, I haven't seen anything, haven't experienced anything. So, but when before she did, there was a lot of goings. Like even my daughter said she walked by my room one day going into her room, and she thought it was me standing on my bed. So she's like, "What the heck is he doing standing on his bed?" So she backed up, like walked backwards real quick, and looked into the room, and nobody was in my room. And I was like,
Ugh.
"Oh my God."
Wow.
She's like, "I didn't know it was you or not." She's like, "I just assumed it was you because it's your bedroom, but it was like a black figure," she said. And I was
Mm.
like, "That's a shadow figure." You saw a shadow person. And my son also had his one of his stuffed animals just randomly put on the center of his bed. He came upstairs one night, and he's like, "Hey Dad." I was like, "What?" He's like, "There's a stuffed animal in the center of my bed." And I'm like, "Yeah, you have stuffed animals." And he's like, "No, it's in the center of my bed sitting up like it's supposed to sit." And I was like, "All right." So I went upstairs, and there it was, like in the exact center of his bed, sitting upright, like the way it was made to sit. And I was like, "This is kind of weird." So we did a prayer because my son is randomly religious, or well, he believes in God and stuff like that. So we did that, and nothing has. And then I think shortly after was when the psychic medium came remote to my house and removed whatever she had seen in my room. And ever since then, none of us have had anything. And it's been a couple months now since that.
I wonder if the thing cowering in the corner had been with you for years or if that was something new or something with the house.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't, because I mean, she didn't say that it was an attachment or if it or anything like that. She just knew that it was there and she removed it. But I talked to another medium. Oh, well, there was two. There were two. They do stuff together, and they said that. So they touched on what I thought is the stringy stuff from the apparition from when I was a kid, and they said that I have a squid entity attachment. So, which was really weird. I've never heard of a squid entity or anything like that, but it's trying to squeeze me. And she said that I'm doing, because I've been doing therapy, I've been doing the spiritual journey and stuff like that. She said that I am making strides of breaking it off and all that. But I don't know. I mean, you never know for true if a medium is actually seeing what they're saying that they're telling you that they're seeing. And I'm not saying that they're frauds or anything, but you never know sometimes.
Well, and plus the things that sometimes they're looking at are they're tricksters themselves. So who knows what kind of blocks they have
True.
up or things that these things that they're trying to view, what kind of things that they can execute to where those that are very talented at those kinds of things. And by the way, even the more quote unquote mainstream shows have had remote viewers on, and it's a real thing. People can scoff all they want, but the government has used them, so they can laugh all they want. But yeah, who knows
There's
what
documents.
yeah. This is real stuff, guys. Call it psychic, call it remote view, whatever you want. But yes, there are charlatans out there. Yes, there are assholes that just want to take your money and tell you what you want to hear. But there are people that can do this. So yeah, it makes you wonder if they start to view more of a demonic or a trickster element or something that's very powerful that goes, oh, yeah, you're going to view me, but you're not really going to view me, So who knows what these things are capable of? And that's what's, of course, terrifying, right? And isn't that funny not funny, but you can see shadow figures so much that you can become accustomed to them. They never bothered you. But then this one, quote unquote, chick, how many air quotes am I going to do in this episode? I'm sorry, everybody. Kevin's probably like, oh my God, we get what you're trying to say. Shut up about the quote unquote. This woman comes in, and as you said about the dog man or whatever the hell that was at the boulder, I mean, you just knew right away, this is some bad news.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It is very, I can't, it's weird that it's just like a instant feeling. There was nothing to, like, looking at it it's awkward, I guess, with this woman or whatever it was. I think it was the movement that like looking at it, obviously it was the outline of it was something that I would really like, obviously, to find in my room, but
Yep.
for the movement of it, I'm just like, what the hell is that? And I know we have like these gut feelings and stuff that the fight or flight mode that that we've had, that humans that have kept us, I guess, safe um throughout our existence and stuff like that. So are these things like enacting our what should be our natural responses to seeing something that we don't understand from a different what could be a different realm? Because like with Dogman, you hear these metal sounds or whatever, then all of a sudden you have a Dogman experience. And I don't know what it could be. It's either way, both of those experiences were terrifying. I don't want to experience them again. But to the as the speculation has been, when from people that I talked to, they're like, maybe it's a succubus. I was like, I don't know. Succubuses actually get what they want, though. So most of the time, anyway. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
and I could be wrong and just misremembering. It's been a while since I've had an incubus or straight up just incubus or succubus type experience on. I don't recall any of them including where are these just robotic type movements. That was such a giveaway that this is just a really effed up situation, right? But that is kind of interest because, talking about something demonic, when they come through, they usually come through and they try real hard to look as normal as they can, but they don't quite get it right. There's something screwed up. They're missing something or whatever it is. They're just right. They try, but you're like, good try, buddy. But nah, you don't really quite get the medal on that one. So it's interesting that this vision, whatever, was looking very attractive to you, except it's screwed up by having these really screwed up motions about it and not, of course, walking like a person would walk. So very strange.
When I picture it too, it makes me laugh as well, just because, like, and a couple people are like, do you think that it was like more like the Silent Hill nurses? I was like, oh, well, it could have been like that too, but the best way that I can say is, if you think about, if anybody, I'm sure a lot of people haven't, I'm sure there's people out there that haven't seen Star Wars, But if you think about C3PO and the way that he walks, that was pretty similar to how she was entering my room. And I was just like,
Ugh,
okay, this is not
no,
something that I want here.
no.
Um,
I would lose it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Time to pull out the
it's
whatever you need to get it out.
right. In the moment, terrifying. Thinking about it now is pretty funny. Just to like picture her, her walking into my room, just like, oh my god, this is so silly.
Try harder, woman, or whatever the hell you are. Try harder. this is
Exactly.
this is not a this is not a breakdancing competition. Let's just try to move normally here. Well, Kevin, will you let everybody know where to find where the weird ones are? Plug the website again. Let them know, of course, where to find the podcast if somehow they don't know where to find podcasts. And then any socials that you want to give out, of course, too.
Yeah. So where the weird ones are podcast is on any podcatcher that you can find. There's a lot of, first of all, there's a lot of podcast catchers out there that I've never even heard of.
I
So it's
know it.
pretty interesting
There is a
that I'm
ton.
on there.
Yep.
I also do video for the podcast, so you can find it on YouTube. I do a morning show every Sunday morning too with my friend David. We just discuss news. We do a missing persons alert, a set this day in history. Then we try to lighten all the news stuff with a Florida Man segment where I tell three different stories and try and get my buddy David to guess which one is the man in Florida.
Oh, God, that sounds
And we
fun.
do there's some funny stories in there. And then we do a segment where we do videos we found funny or cringy on TikTok. So it's been a lot of fun. I recently just started doing that in November, but the podcast that is similar to what Shannon has here is on all the podcatchers and on YouTube as well. I do have merch and hot sauce and coffee. If anybody's feeling froggy and checking that out, it's where the weird ones are podcast.com. If you guys do check out the show, if you don't mind at least leaving a review, you don't have to leave a rating, but if you do want to leave a rating, that would be dope too. You know, I don't do the podcast for views and followers and stuff, but I love getting feedback. And then I think that's pretty much Instagram is where I'm most active. It's where underscore the weird ones are. And then I also have a where the weird ones are page on Facebook. And that is all.
Excellent. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being willing to come on and being so candid about all of your experiences. And I hope that we keep in touch. And I do hope that the house stays quiet, though. I'm glad to hear it's been quiet for a couple of months ever since that weirdo came through and left. But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. You know, I've heard a lot of good things about you from not only Aaron, but a few other people who have had experiences with your show and meeting you and stuff like that. So I was like, I have to talk to her. So I'm glad I did.